your son fell out of the wheelchair?
Cuando yo estoy entrando a mi visita
When I was going in for my visit,
y me traen al niño en silla de ruedas,
and they brought my child to me in the wheelchair,
él tiene su ojo izquierdo
he had his left eye
completamente cerrado,
completely closed,
con una herida sobre él,
with a wound over it,
su cara completamente hinchada,
his face completely swollen,
incluyendo los labios,
including his lips.
rojo en toda su nariz,
He was red all through his nose.
su otra parte de la cara, es a saber su lado derecho,
The other side of his face, which would have been the right side,
tan hinchado que el niño no podía abrir su ojo.
it was so swollen that the child couldn't open his eye.
Ma'am, it's undisputed that something happened. What I'm asking you is, who told you specifically that your son fell out of the wheelchair?
Cuando yo pregunté qué le había pasado a mi hijo,
When I asked what had happened to my son,
la asistente de la señora Whitney,
the Miss Whitney's assistant,
quien estaba supervisando ese día la visita
who was supervising the visit that day,
y quien trae a Omarcito a la
and she's
visita,
the one who brings Omarcito,
me contesta
and she responded to me
que la enfermera le acabía de notificar
that the nurse had just notified her
que el fin de semana
that on the weekend,
Omarcito se había caído de su silla de ruedas
Omarcito had fallen out of his wheelchair
cuando se le estaba dando su tratamiento de respiración.
when they were giving him his breathing treatment.
Yo realmente me preocupé.
In fact, I was very worried.
Omarcito lucía muy débil
Omarcito looked so weak
y muy triste
and very sad
y enfermo.
and sick.
Yo lloré casi toda la visita.
I cried almost that entire visit.
Sin embargo, mantuve mi posición
Nevertheless, I maintained my position
con las actividades que hago
with the activities that I do
cuando visito a mi hijo Omar.
when I visit my son Omar.
Did anyone else tell you that he fell from the wheelchair?
Vino una directora o supervisora,
A director or some kind of supervisor came.
si mal no recuerdo, su nombre era Brenda,
If I remember correctly, her name was Brenda,
y ella confirmó
and she confirmed
cuando yo le pregunté
when I asked her
sobre la caída de Omar
about Omar's fall.
y me dijo que ya él estaba mucho mejor.
And she said that he was better now.
Miss Whitney, do you know anyone named Brenda at the facility?
I do. Brenda Legg is the nursing supervisor of the adolescent unit, and Leanne is my assistant. I had Leanne write a report. Leanne was given specific instructions as to what to say about the incident, and she said exactly what I said, that his head got caught in the chair, and then Brenda
Well, why was
Legg-
she given specific instructions by you if you weren't there? Why did you tell her what to say?
I told her what to say to the mom before she saw Omar, that there had been an injury during the breathing treatment, that his head was caught in the wheelchair and he has an abrasion. And then Leanne told me when she got back that Brenda Legg happened to come over and mom asked her that question, and Brenda said the exact same thing, that it happened during the breathing treatment. No one ever said that he fell out of the chair. He was strapped in the chair, he was thrashing and got his head twisted in there.
If I may, as far as why is there a message? We don't speak Spanish. No, Leanne doesn't speak Spanish. Some of,
I don't speak Spanish.
so we're somewhat at a, I want to say, communicating has to be different. We don't have an interpreter who can relay what's being said. So it was given instruction on simple messages with the hopes that it wouldn't be misinterpreted, misunderstood. So whoever did speak to her, I don't think anyone spoke to her in Spanish as far as what occurred.
Ms. Rojas, did anyone speak to you in Spanish about what happened?
Nadie habló en español, sin embargo yo entendí claramente la explicación.
Nobody spoke to me in Spanish, but I did understand clearly the explanation.
Estando aquí en esta corte,
Being here in this court,
habiendo yo solicitado intérpretes anteriormente,
and previously I have requested interpreters,
con todo respeto, su honoría,
with all respect to your honor,
usted me ha dicho que mi inglés está en un alto nivel.
you have said that my English is a high level.
Cuando yo logro hablar con una sola persona,
When I am able to speak with only one person
a una velocidad que yo entiendo,
at a speed that I understand,
puedo entender bastante.
I can understand a lot.
Y cuando no entiendo, aunque sea una sola palabra,
And when I don't understand, even if it's just one word,
siempre pregunto.
I will ask.
Ms. Arena, anything else to address?
Not as to that matter, Your Honor, no.
As to any matter, as part of the status conference.
I can't think of any other issue at this point to address.
Mr. Belz?
If I may, just briefly, there has been some discussion of visitation, some discussion of this injury, and also some discussion of the conclusion reached by the court examiner, or the court monitored that the ward was in excellent physical condition. We disagree. We're not, and we could speak to medical support for that. The first weight we had of the ward, he was more than 20 pounds underweight. He's gained weight 2 pounds roughly since that time.
Well, let me rephrase the question.
Okay, yes, Your Honor.
Present status. Anything to address?
Concerning,
Any issue? Anything that I need to address at this time as to the care and well-being of the ward? Not what's happened in the past, but presently.
Your Honor, I was just trying to relay why we separate the complexity of the ward's medical needs from visitation. Unfortunately, the concern we have, even if we get past visitation, is the ward's medical, the most important thing is for Omar's medical care, for him to get better, for him to get stronger. And based on the records we've seen, we just want to make sure that that continues, and however the court sees that occurring, we want to do what's best for Omar. At the same time, the suggestion of a better professional guardian. If I may speak to that briefly, Your Honor. It was in the report. If I could present a professional guardian who was bilingual and willing to take this case, I would say there's probably some benefit to that. I'll be frank, I don't know that there is a professional guardian in this circuit or in a neighboring circuit who will take this case at this time. So even if we file a resignation, that doesn't fill the hole of who is to follow. Our position in the conclusion reached by the court monitor, the conclusion reached by the prior guardian is that a professional guardian is necessary in this case. In our opinion, that is the case. However, getting past the professional guardian, spending time on visitation, is, in my opinion, the only way we see it last in the long run. But if there was someone tomorrow who would call me or call Ms. Whitney as a professional guardian saying, I want to consider this case, we would listen to that. But at this time, I've only heard someone else, and I can't speak for every professional guardian in the circuit, but this is not the easiest, or there's risk associated with this case of never being paid, for instance, that promote a pure simple barrier to finding a replacement. Not to mention the fact that the dynamics are, I don't know that anyone will ever get along with Ruth Lynn Rojas, whoever the professional guardian is. Maybe they can get better, but I don't see that, and I'm not a fortune teller, Your Honor, but the last guardian and her report, and I will rather that, the author of that report, Tamara Cribben, is also a member of the Florida Bar. She's presented to this court that every conversation with either parent takes considerable amounts of time, and that if Ruth Lynn's not in charge, she's not going to accept that arrangement. And that was from a guardian whose whole role and considerable time was spent on trying to work things out with the family. That guardian was deemed unacceptable to the parties. We're reaching the same conclusion, it appears, our opinion that is here. I think a third guardian, you'll be at that same conclusion in 6 months or less. So nothing further at this time, Your Honor.
Now, Ms. Ruthlyn Rojas, I'll give you one more opportunity. If there's anything you'd like to state at this time.
Sí, su señoría.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yo veo que en este caso
I see that in this case,
se está enfocando demasiado
they are focusing too much
en la forma en que yo he actuado.
in the way that I have acted.
Sin embargo, el resultado por 19 años,
Nevertheless, the result for 19 years,
Omarcito ha sido cuidado con excelencia
Omarcito has been taken care of with excellence,
y nadie ha podido negar eso.
and no one has been able to deny that.
Sin embargo, yo
Nevertheless,
acepto ser
I accept
ser muy clara y precisa
that I'm very clear and precise
en los cuidados que Omar necesita,
with respect to the care that Omar needs,
de la manera que los necesita,
and in the way that he needs to receive it,
bajo las instrucciones médicas.
according to the medical instructions.
Recordemos que Omar no habla
We have to remember that Omar does not speak.
y quien único logra entender de Omar
The only person that is able to understand Omar
su lenguaje físico
his physical language
soy yo.
is me.
Hay muchas enfermeras y personas en el mundo de Omar por 19 años
There's been a lot of nurses and people in Omar's world for 19 years
que han visto correcto mi manera de proceder,
who have seen that my way is the correct way to proceed,
porque ahí están los resultados.
because the results are there.
Entiendo que haya personas en el lapso de tiempo
I understand that there's been people in different lapses of time
que no estén de acuerdo.
that were not in agreement.
Entonces, no pueden trabajar con Omarcito en ese aspecto,
So in that aspect, they cannot work with Omarcito,
porque tenemos que trabajar como un equipo.
because we have to all work as a team.
Y equipo significa
And team means
trabajar todos juntos para un mismo objetivo.
all work together to achieve one goal.
Hay otro tema del cual se desarrolla aquí, que son las enfermeras o los supervisores en el caso,
There's another theme that we have touched on here, which is regarding the nurses or the supervisors of the case.
donde yo explico con demasiado detalle tal vez,
And sometimes I do explain things with too much detail,
y a la gente no le parece.
and people, they don't like that.
Entiendo que ese no es el propósito de este caso.
I understand that that's not the purpose of this case.
Rudelin, aquí el objetivo es Omarcito.
Rutherland, the object of this case is Omarcito.
En todos estos papeles,
In all these papers,
lo que yo he podido ver
what I have been able to see
es que Omar está en gran sufrimiento.
is that Omar is greatly suffering.
Él está en soledad.
He is alone.
Él está en harassment, como dicen en inglés, en acoso.
He is being harassed, as they say in English.
Es difícil porque Omar no habla.
It's hard because Omar does not speak.
Pero nada más imaginarnos arrebatar un niño que por 19 años ha vivido en su casa,
Just to imagine that they would attack or go after a child who's lived for 19 years in his own home
con sus padres,
with his parents,
y de la noche a la mañana ponerlo en un lugar completamente desconocido,
and from one day to the next they put him in a completely unknown place
con personas desconocidas.
with people he does not know.
Ahí vemos los resultados en apenas 3 meses.
There we saw the results within only 3 months.
Omar no es el niño feliz que era antes.
Omar is not the happy child that he was before.
Y el propósito de esta corte
The purpose of this court
es Omarcito.
is Omarcito.
Yo entiendo como madre,
I understand as a mother,
como tutora,
as a guardian.
Omar necesita volver a su medio ambiente.
Omar needs to go back to his own environment.
Y nosotros como padres
And we as parents,
estamos en la completa disposición
we are completely ready
de trabajar por el bienestar de Omar,
to work for the well-being of Omar.
dejando cualquier diferencia que hubo en el pasado.
We'll leave all the differences in the past behind.
He dicho.
That's it. That's all I have to say.
Ms. Rojas, I agree with you completely that everyone has to work together as a team for the benefit of your son. And I'll be perfectly candid with you. If at some point in the future I'm convinced that you can work with everyone together as a team, I would consider placing him back in your home. Do you understand that?
Sí, señor.
Yes, sir.
No one can dispute that you spent more time with your son and cared for him more than anyone else has during the last 19 years. No one has loved him more or cared for him more than you have. Mr. Rojas, I know you have as well, of course. I'm not minimizing it. But the reality is there's this thing called mother's love. Ms. Rojas, what needs to happen, and I like what you said about putting everything that's happened behind. I do think that needs to happen with everyone, not just with you, but specifically with you. If you want your son back in your home to where you're the primary caregiver and responsible for him someday, you have to accept that other people have knowledge and can provide things that you cannot provide. You need to understand and accept that and abide by their recommendations. Accept their services without question. Because they do this, he's your son, but they do this for a living for many people. I'm talking caregivers, healthcare providers, etc. Because perhaps the ideal situation would be for him to return to your home and in your care someday. I cannot do that today because I need to make certain that everything is appropriate for that to happen. But you can certainly work toward that beginning today, as you said, by putting everything behind and cooperating, not arguing with everyone. There's nothing wrong with you as his mother advocating on his behalf. But there's a difference between advocating and arguing or being obstructive. Now, I'm not accusing you of that because I've not been there during these conversations, but that's what needs to happen.
Yo quisiera decir algo.
I'd like to say something.
Briefly, go ahead.
Sí, basado solamente en esta forma en que se ha hablado de mi persona.
Based only on the way that they talk about me as a person.
Ya yo salí a buscar ayuda
I did go out and I asked for help.
y pregunté si podía ser orientada
And I asked if I could be oriented or informed
con relación a mi persona
with respect to myself as a person,
y ver si hay, si lo que está asignado en este caso
and to see if what was I was assigned to in this case,
hay maneras en que yo pueda aprender a trabajarlo.
there are some ways that I could learn to be able to do that work, to work at that.
Start that today. I know there are issues between you and Miss Whitney, who's serving as guardian at this time. I know it goes both ways. There's no doubt in my mind about that. But it needs to stop from both of you today. The last thing it needs to be is an adversarial relationship between Miss Whitney as a guardian and you as the mother.
En el momento en que la señora Whitney se expresa delante de mí desde la primera vez que la conocí, de una manera
From the first moment that Mrs. Whitney expressed herself in front of me, from the first time that I met her,
tan agresiva,
so aggressive,
yo me sentí intimidada como nunca antes.
I felt so intimidated that I had never felt like that before.
Miss Rojas, you notice when I just made those comments, I looked over at Miss Whitney as well. I was addressing her as well, not just you. Before, I was just addressing you when I was talking about the care, the love, accepting the services, and knowledge of others. Now I'm talking and directing it to both of you. That's why I keep looking back and forth. It has been adversarial from both sides. And that's why when I said it needs to stop, I looked at both of you, not just you. Because now I'm addressing both of you. Ms. Whitney, as guardian, of course, needs to be made aware of all information related to the ward. But the attorney for the ward, Ms. Arena, has an absolute right to all that information. And at this point, I see no reason why that information should not be provided to Ms. Ruthlyn Rojas and Mr. Ramon Rojas as well. So from this moment forward, that's an order of the court.
Or if I may inquire, when you say information, what is the scope?
Anything relevant. Not what he had for breakfast that day, but anything relevant. Anything that they as a parent should know.
With respect to HIPAA protected information, how does that fall into this court's order?
I'm basically talking about the status. An example would be if something happened on the 5th, Ms. Arena and the Rojas's should be made aware of that right away. In my mind, there's no reason for them not to be as parents. I understand you have a little bit of an issue as guardian and HIPAA, etc. But just general information, I don't think there's any issue with that being shared.
I just wanted to be clear, Your Honor.
If anything significant happens, they definitely need to be aware of it. An example would be no medical treatment without them being aware of it. Now, the guardian authorizes it. Ms. Arena weighs in as attorney for the ward, but there's no reason why the Rojas should be told about it after it happens.
In a non-emergency situation, the situation was reflected by the court monitor, though, there was, the options were surgery or they're asking Ms. Whitney to sign a DNR, which is, we had this conversation, Your Honor.
Well, that's never going to happen in this case.
No, Your Honor, agreed. And so that was her choice. That was those two things, and that was the only other. They're literally saying he will die if we don't do this. But if obviously if something happens over the weekend and getting it out, and I apologize that I did not give that to Ms. Arena. I had been diligent in providing her anything. And her situation's different. She's her court-appointed attorney. The HIPAA restrictions, she can have all of that because her order allows her to do so. And I, perhaps not on that occasion, but on others we have. And we will, I just wanted to make sure I understood.
I'm not talking daily status reports.
Understood, Your Honor.
If something rises to the level that it's appropriate for Ms. Arena to be made aware of it, there's probably no reason why the Rojas's should be anywhere but rise to that level. Do they have visitation hours, so to speak, at Sable Palms?
No.
There's some, he has activities, you know, so they want to know when people are coming, just so that, not minute by minute, but if they say I'll be here between 11 and noon, they know to expect Omar.
Most places have like blocks of time.
I don't think they want to come in at midnight, but.
Yeah, there are people who come at different hours there. They'd like it to be business hours. He gets fed 5 times. He has 2 inhaler breathing treatments, 2 shaking treatments. He has to be bathed. He has school. They have activities for him. So what they're trying to do is make sure that he's up and ready. And because he has a trach now, he can't leave the hallway where the adolescents are, because there have to be trach people trained and they have to be within view. So they're trying to, they've asked me, and the confidentiality of other patients, there are many kids under DCF there. That's why they don't want any photos taken, so that other kids aren't in photos placed on Facebook and stuff like that. So they said, you know, unless, like, I actually did have my assistant asked to take a picture of the injury so that I could see it, because I had not seen it. It happened on the 5th, is that the right day, at night? And I believe the visitation was on the 7th in the morning, it's a Thursday. And so I did ask to take that picture. So those are some of the rules. They're just trying to make sure that he's up and bathed and dressed and ready to go, and that they're not going to be interfering with the parents visiting. They encourage the parents to visit. It's treatment that they're trying to make sure that they're going to be able to do.
My understanding this week is it was communicated to the facility, and the father regularly comes Saturdays at approximately 11. Mr. Rojas asked my client earlier this week or late last week, could he come in the evenings, 5 or so? That was relayed to Sable Palms, just know to expect him. So there didn't seem to be a reservation to someone arriving at 5 p.m.
I'm sorry, this is the interpreter. I did not hear that last sentence about arriving at 5 p.m.
The facility did not present a barrier or at all seem concerned about that particular hour of the day, so I don't know when, but 5 p.m. was a reasonable time for someone to arrive. If I may too, Your Honor, I've seen that I've been surprised before. I'm willing to be surprised again. And in this case, one surprise that occurred recently is, for much of this case, my understanding of it and came into it was because the parents were not able to get along, to just not characterize in any way that associates blame with anyone. So seeing them together today is not at all in keeping with where we were before. I think that if that's positive for their relationship for Omar, I understand they're still divorced, but if they're able to at least reconcile to the point for the benefit of their father, my client's concern is this. In the past, visitation was, we didn't want them coming at the same time, because our understanding was that would present challenges. In fact, when I suggested to Mr. Rojas' last attorney that he'd been communicating with Mom, I was profoundly rebuked how insulting that suggestion was. That was just last month. So I am hopeful this continues and that we don't have to effective. I don't want this to be a child custody case. It's not a child custody case where we're having to look at this through a timeshare lens. That's ill-suited for the case, but it's how this case had been before. So the one thing we had up until now had been concerned with is them coming at the same time, and they present together unified. I don't mean to put anyone on the spot, but I don't. We're a little. That there may be some need for us to understand what their tolerances for each other truly are, if this is going to last or if this is a new evolution in their relationship.
Mr. and Ms. Rojas, do you two reside in the same home or no?
No,
No.
señor.
No, sir, no.
Ma'am, what county do you live in?
Hillsboro.
Hillsboro,
And sir, what county do you live in?
Hillsboro.
Hillsboro.
At this time, I'm going to order that the guardian is not to place any restrictions on the visitation of either parent, absent further order of the court. Both parents will be entitled to unsupervised time with Ramon Rojas. But until further order of court, not at the same time. So I want to make this absolutely clear to both of you. I've now lifted any restrictions that Ms. Whitney has placed on you as to limitations with you spending time with your child. Do you understand that?
Sí.
Sí, señor.
Yes, yes, sir.
You must make it 100% positive, cooperative, follow everyone's rules and regulations, and create no issues whatsoever. If any problems in
Yes,
this
sir.
regard are brought to my attention, it will not be Miss Whitney that will stop you from seeing your son. It will be me, by court order. But so long as you do what you're supposed to do, when you're supposed to do it, cooperate, act appropriately, and follow all the rules and regulations of the facility, there'll be no restrictions on you spending time with your son. I don't need to go into great detail. I think you understand what I mean. If you disrupt his care, then I'm going to have to place restrictions on you. So you can be there when he's being fed or treated, etc., but you have to let the other individuals do their job, so to speak. Just make certain nothing happens to where the facility brings it to the attention of your son's attorney or the guardian's attorney that's brought to my attention that would cause me to have to restrict the time you spend with the child. Ma'am, do you understand everything I just stated with the assistance of the interpreter?
Sí, señor.
Yes, sir.
Sir, you had a question, I think?
Sí, es que mi hijo mayor también le gustaría ver a su hermano y me ha preguntado que si cuándo él puede ver a su hermano y no ha
Yes.
podido.
My older son would like to also see his brother, and he has asked me when can he see his brother because he hasn't been able to.
How old is he? Your older son.
26, 27 años, más o menos.
26, 27 years old approximately.
Does he live in the local area?
Plan City.
Plant City.
Any issue? I'm not aware.
Carol, we had no understanding of any siblings in this case. So, I mean, this is new information. If there's, I think in the course of this case, which lasted more than a year, I don't see any. In fact, I asked Ms. Arena at one point, does he have siblings? And none of us knew. So I can't present an issue over someone who I'm just learning about.
So
the answer would be no, Your Honor.
Ms. Rojas, does he have an older brother? Answer me honestly.
No.
No.
Es un primo, un sobrino de señor Ramón que estuvo
It's a
viviendo,
cousin
estuvo viviendo con nosotros unos años.
that was living with us, a relative of Mr. Rojas.
Y
He
ellos-
was living with us for a few years.
Y él ama a Omarcito como su hermano, le llama mi hermanito.
He loves Omar as if he were his brother. He calls him my little brother.
What is his name?
Jonadab Rojas,
Jonathan Rojas
con J.
with a J.
I'll need a spelling, please, Madam Clerk.
Necesito que
Jonadab.
Your Honor, this is the interpreter. She spelled his name for me, Jonadab, as in boy.
And the last name?
Rojas.
Rojas.
Jonadab Rojas will have supervised visitation.